Welcome to this discussion on how we use the Neurozone system. There are a number of ways in which we package our offerings to organizations, be that for business or other organizations where individuals work collectively towards common goals. So the first thing is that we use the model, we use the drivers, the sub-drivers linked to outcomes. And if you think about outcomes, these outcomes could be the 4 core capacities, which are resilience, leadership, learning capacity, and innovation capacity. But it could also be other outcomes. It could also be outcomes that are very specific to the needs of the organization. For instance, engagement or job performance, or in the wellness space, you could think of reduced clinic visits, reduced absenteeism, or even reduced staff turnover intentions. These are just examples of outcomes that organizations often would say these are pain points. We need something here. And so you could really tailor-make the model and the sub-drivers and drivers and correlate them with that particular outcome and show how you can work using coaching and other modalities to reduce the pain by optimizing very specific components which have been shown in the system to be important for that particular outcome. So if you look at the next slide, I think we should just start a little bit standing back, looking at it from far and say, what are the things that we as Neurozone provide in our solution? Well, it sort of speaks to what we do. So you'll see in this slide that there are 4 bullet points, but effectively these are 3 major pillars. The 3 pillars on which we base our neuroscience-based solution for individuals and for organizational high performance is we have to work through people. People change people, so we work through coaches and mentoring. And that's our first major pillar. So we say people change people, and so coaching is a huge part of how we deliver our offerings. Secondly, people change when they have insights. Insights could shift mindsets, change worldview, change the way we assign value to incoming cues unconsciously, changes the way we feel and think and act. And so if you want to change behavior, you need to provide serious insights. And so we say insights and essential knowledge for all users is a second pillar. And then finally, we individually optimize our offerings to users so that they can actually find the value of the reports and what we offer them as being very personal, but also providing them with the highest return on their investment. And also then thinking of organizations, we use company-wide or organization-wide outcomes data also to provide organizational optimization. I'll talk to this a bit later. So 3 major pillars. Just to repeat, it's coaching, it is insights, and analytics to provide this bed upon which you can personally optimize your high-performance outcomes. Just to remind you in the next slide, we have gone through this in the first module. We talked about where we position brain performance. Remember that we use the system and it can be packaged with a number of modalities that are being used by coaches in general. We think about the left bottom block, the personality styles preferences. We think about the Enneagram, the Myers-Briggs, the Lumina, the Herman Brain Dominance Index, and a number of others. On the far right corner, in the bottom, we think about strength finders working with talents. And so you can use these instruments, but in the middle, Neurozone really fits very well with problem solving, with brain performance. And so how we behave, the behaviors that we have adopted in our lives have an effect on our brain performance, effectively for thriving. And so this is where Neurozone comes in. So you can really see that you can put this very sensibly together and package a solution using some of the other modalities that you might be well aware of. In the next slide, I really want to show you 3 major products that we are offering in the Neurozone system. The first one is the 4 core report. It speaks to the 4 core capacities of resilience, leadership in learning and innovation capacity. And I'm going to spend a bit of time talking through that just now. We also have an online course, and you've gone through the bulk of the online course in this particular journey. It's the online course Neuroscience for High Performance, and it's also developed for the use of leaders and middle management and professionals to, through a self-directed process, gain understanding, knowledge and insights about how the brain-body system performs and how to optimize it. And then, of course, we can intersperse this particular course with coaching. We can even put a focal report in the beginning and the end, so a pre and a post assessment to give the users an understanding of how they've optimized their system. And talking about that, our third major offering will be data analytics. And so we can do pre and post analytics, we can provide progress reports, we can provide analytic reports to the organization. And if you think about any outcome, we can link up our data with outcomes and provide a particular, what we call a resource allocation map for organizations to improve organizational development. And so these are the three major offerings. Let me then, in the next slide, and first of all, talk about the Neurozone 4 Core report. And there you see it, and I'm going to just highlight a number of things in the report. If one looks at the report, you'll see that it has a number of pages, and it has a certain logic to it, and the temporal flow. So the first important component that I want to just touch on in the next slide is the model. And what you see in this model are a number of scores, and these scores have been arranged in such a way that you have what we call brain performance opportunity scores and you have capacity scores. And let me explain. The outer circle, all those bubbles, those in the outer circle, or the donuts if you may, are scores that refer to optimization scores. It means that you have an opportunity score. It's a brain performance opportunity score which you can use to optimize your system. The green bubbles or donuts are really the foundational drivers that speak to wellness rhythms, exercise, movement, nutrition, sleep-wake cycle, and science in the mind or mindfulness training. And then you have the three blue donuts. They are the emotional drivers, speaking to the social safety, bonding, belonging, a sense of making a meaningful contribution and having an identity in the group. And then the goal-directedness and collective creativity. And then finally, you'll see these orange donuts, the problem-solving machine, starting with learning. Knowledge are the building blocks or form the building blocks for innovation, and then abstraction, executive function, completing that particular problem-solving machine. In the middle, you'll see the 4 core capacities: resilience, self-leadership, learning capacity, and innovation capacity. And then there's a score in the middle called the optimized brain-body system. That score is not an average of the 4 core capacities, but rather an aggregate that's been derived from the scores in the driver system. So if you think about the capacity scores, they are true capacity scores, and they have been, the way that we really calculated them is we started out with a set of validated instruments that are being used and recognized internationally to measure these particular capacities. And then eventually, through a process of iteration, we now have predictive analytics that predict those scores from your assessment. And in the outer scores, those scores, the so-called driver scores, are made up of a weighted contribution of sub-drivers within each of those drivers, and I'll show you how that works. And those weights, of course, once again have been assigned through a structural equation modeling process using thousands of individuals in our metrics. So valid and valuable. The small little bubbles, those scores are norm scores, and in particular here it's age related, but we can set those norms depending on the need. If you look at the next slide, you'll see in your report now there are a number of drivers. In fact, all 10 drivers now follow the same pattern, and it starts with a this bar chart that provides, or a histogram that provides the weighted scores of sub-drivers as they contribute to a particular driver score. So what you see here is exercise. And you'll see that there are 8 sub-drivers: clean air inhalation, strength, balance and flexibility, cardio, high-intensity interval training, mobility, diversity, and duration. You'll also see that there's a little podcast icon next to the particular row. And if you click on these little gray rows or little cells, you will find a podcast that will open up and give you a 1 to 2 minute rendition or explanation of that particular subdriver as it relates to brain performance and to the scores. So that could be of great value to individuals, but also for coaches to help their coachees or their clients understand how this works. What you can see as well here, the green colored parts of these bars reflect the individual score, and you can see that there are opportunities, especially in these little grayed out areas, to enhance performance. If you look at the next slide, this is just another example of the same thing. This one is particularly for collective creativity, and so there are 10 of these histograms and a total of pretty close to 70 sub-drivers that really contribute to high performance and that can be worked with. And so there are podcasts, once again, that explains every one of these different sub-drivers. And then if you page on, you'll also see another way of description of these particular sub-drivers. So in this slide on the right-hand side, you'll see the page that really now takes these sub-drivers and then gives you a score next to it, a +6 or a +4 there, or a +10. Says this is the amount that you can actually enhance your exercise score if you adhere to this particular recommendation. And to the far right, you will see that these are apps that you can click through to, and you can actually go in and you can watch use that app. You can also click on the recommendation just to the left of this +6, +4, +10 score, and there you will find a reference that we chose and linked to that particular recommendation, so that it gives you a good indication of the science behind that particular recommendation. So every recommendation has science behind it. To the far left, just one thing I just left out here, and you can see there's a video, a so-called creative whiteboard video. Clicking on that video provides a very specifically custom-made video related to that particular driver and describing the important insights to understand that particular driver in terms of brain and high performance. So this is the interactive online report system that can be used and provides individuals with a whole lot of information, insights, etc. And also the coach can work then with this individual to make plans. If you now go back to the second page, you'll see 6 high-impact recommendations in this next slide. And these 6 high-impact recommendations have been chosen by the system through the analytics to say these are the 6 recommendations that if this individual adheres to these 6 recommendations, you can expect a high yield and high performance outcome as it relates to the particular outcome that you are looking for. And in the case of the 4-core report, it is for enhancing the resilience, self-leadership, innovation, and learning capacities. So once again, a coach can work with using these impact recommendations and coach their individual users and their groups with this, because the group report will also provide the group with something they can work with that could be of value for the group then. And that completes the 4-core report system, or the 4-core, and then I'm going to move to a second product. Now, the second product is the Neurozone online course, Neuroscience for High Performance. This product probably do not need any further explanation because you've gone through a bulk of the product, you've seen it, you understand how it works, and this is a product that we then can offer in isolation or in conjunction with report systems and analytics to organizations, groups, etc. Leadership development and organizational development. And so we have tested this and used it in a number of markets with success. Finally, if you look at the next slide, there is Neurozone Analytics. Now, just a few notes on the analytics. I just want to remind you again that we can use the analytics to provide feedback to any group through an analytic report. So an analytic report will give a pre and a post and an explanation, link it up to outcomes, demonstrate and provide recommendations to that particular group as to how they need to move forward. We can also provide analytic reports based on very specific, tailor-made outcomes. And so if the organization tells us, I want to enhance my engagement, and there's a way they measure their engagement levels, we can link that up with the system. And provided that there are 200 or more people in the system, we can use that system to provide a whole new analytic with weights assigned to that particular outcome to ensure that that outcome is being enhanced. And this is then provided to the leadership. So don't hesitate to speak to Neurozone about this if you need to know more about how to utilize the system for OD, for organizational development, as opposed to leadership development in that sense. So the two markets that we really work in, leadership development, this is individual and group leadership development, and then, of course, organizational development, where you support the organization in terms of its development with a system that provides a resource allocation capability or resource allocation map to enhance the brain-body system for the particular outcomes the organization is looking for. So finally, if you look at the Neurozone Analytics, there is an example of a pre and a post of a particular group that we recently completed in a big bank. Self-leadership, innovation capacity, learning capacity, and resilience have been demonstrated here. And you can see the pre and the post after 12 weeks of coaching and using the online course, and also a pre and a post that provided the analytics for us. You can see the enhancement there of the different capacities as well as the optimized brain-body system score. This is the Neurozone offerings that you can package. You can package these different product components into solutions which you can offer to your client based on your client's needs. There are individual 4-core reports. There are pre and post reports. You can do as many post reports as you want in a 12-month period at a significantly reduced price. There are also team and group 4-core reports available, as we've discussed before. And then you have the online course, Neuroscience for High Performance, and you can intersperse your online course and your pre and post reports with coaching for high performance impact. And these can be delivered individually, in groups, face-to-face and online, based on your own preference and your client's preference and their need. And that concludes the conversation on the Neurozone system.